We're back with one more down. Today we have number 22, David Sadler, Washington High Prexies, defensive back, wide receiver, class of 1991. And also my teammate in college for Edinboro University. We were teammates for the 95-96 season. And then David extended his career playing the 97 and 98 season, finishing with a fantastic career at the Borough. He's one of the all-time interception leaders in career interceptions with 12 picks. Comes out of Western Pennsylvania, known as Little Washington, Pennsylvania, where they play a hard-nosed, grinded-up brand of football. And if you ever get the chance to go down in those parts and enjoy that atmosphere, you won't be disappointed
at all.
I'm appreciative to have you on to get to hear your story and, rehash some of these memories that we share together and just, listen to what you're up to today, get a good grasp on how life is treating you and how you matured and dealt with manhood along the way over these years. So let me give you some of my thanks in advance. Always have a lot of respect for you. You're one of my top guys. And anytime that you and I get to share a few moments and talk and relive some of these memories that we have, I never go away disappointed.
Hey, well, I always got something up my sleeve, but respect, my brother. I don't deal with a lot of people. And it is a blessing that, over the years, we may not talk a lot, but, it might be, sporadic, from time to time, but it's like no time has been lost. I appreciate you, bro. And yeah, I consider you one of my close friends, but, close friends don't always talk every day. You know what I mean? So I appreciate the platform, and actually it's just perfect timing with everything that I have going on. And there's a lot. It's heavy. It's a lot of weight to carry. So I appreciate you even allowing me the opportunity, to tell my story, to speak truth to power.
Absolutely. That saying that they put out there, what's understood never has to be explained. And I feel like our relationship over the years, that fits that to the T. So how we generally start off on our platform with our guests is we ask you to give a rundown of your family dynamic and your time growing up, your beginnings in Washington. So if you would like to start there, could you give me a little insight into what the home life was like and how you grew up in Pennsylvania?
And I'll give you a snapshot, because anybody knows me that knows once I get excited, I like to talk. And I'll give it all to you. And that's why everybody says, you can't give it all to them, give them snapshots. But growing up in Western Pennsylvania was hard. It was different, and not hard to the point where, you can't make it, but it was difficult. I'm the youngest of 6 kids, raised by my grandmother. And we go back to back to back to back to back. Like, we're literally like 1, 2, 3, skip 4, 5, 6, 7. That's our ages. My mom was young. She got married early to my stepfather, and she had 2, then skipped, then had another one, then skipped, then had the last 3. We got 3 different dads. Yeah, so we got baby daddies in my family. So it was difficult, man. Like I said, after me, my mom was, she got married and had all these kids, and her late teens and early 20s was gone. So she decided to take off, and and left us with her grandma. So all I really know, is my grandmother growing up in a single grandmama house. It was difficult. We were split up. 2 oldest went to go live with her. My oldest brother, went to go live with his maternal grandmother. My sister went to go live with her godmom. And the last 4, we stayed together. So it was difficult, and we struggled. The last 4, we struggled with my grandmother, but I wouldn't change it for anything in the world. One of the hardest parts, to be honest, growing up in Little Washington, was having the last name Sadler. Having the last name Sadler, and no disrespect to to the family, but the truth is the truth. In Western Pennsylvania, it's pretty much blue collar, hard nosed. Everybody knows everybody. It's like the average everyday small town. And unfortunately, the Sadler name ran synonymous with criminal activity. Because I had some older cousins that didn't live life the way they should have back then. It was from drugs to robbing, you name it, they did it. And unfortunately, it fell on me and my siblings by having the name coming up after them. So my nickname, my nickname is Ding. And I used to tell people growing up that I wouldn't even give them my name. So a lot of people thought Ding and David Sadler were 2 totally different people. Because the moment I told somebody David Sadler, some kids, their parents, because we grew up in a mixed community, the poor and the rich and the white and the black. But, the white kids knew they had to come play with us if they wanted to be good athletes. And the parents knew that. So we mixed a lot. But the moment I told them who I was, some of the parents would be like, you can't play with him. So it was difficult. So growing up in that environment, with my grandmother, with just my siblings, didn't really have any uncles and aunts, was difficult because all we had was us, and that's all we relied on, back then, early on. But I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. Western Pennsylvania, the dynamics of it. Now that I live in Montgomery, Alabama, I realized that the relationships that we had growing up, some of them, of course, was probably genuine, but others were superficial. And I tell people now that I think I've experienced more, call it what it is, more racism in Western Pennsylvania than I have in Montgomery, Alabama. And people find that hard to believe, but it's the truth. So, but I wouldn't change it. It made me who I am. Thick skin, tough, quiet, observe, watch. Because being the baby, you couldn't say much, and your brothers and sisters didn't want to hang with you, so you were always by yourself. So I'm considered a loner, but I'm an introvert, but I'm an extrovert. But I'd rather be by myself. So it's an interesting dynamic, bro. But small town, you understand small town growing up, and the dynamics of relationships, white and black, mom, dads, uncle, aunts, cousins, best friends that we call brothers and sisters and cousins. So that's kind of the beginning, and it made me who I am today, and I'm appreciative, because it made me a pretty strong individual.
So, let's dig a layer into that a little bit. When you're raised in a matriarchal household led by your grandmother, just based on our age and demographic, uh, can you give some description of the type of lady that your grandmother was, how her household was run, and how you fit into the dynamic of that rearing under her upbringing?
It was often, we look back and say, what if I would have had a mom and a dad there, every single day? My life probably would be completely different, in a good and bad way, because clearly the relationship wasn't healthy. So that's why, they split. So my grandmother was she was from, Louisiana, light skinned, really couldn't tell what she was. My grandmother may have been 4 feet 10 inches tall. But she no nonsense. No nonsense. She had a mouth like a trucker, would cuss you up and down. I tell people, they laugh. I thought, Tyler Perry made Medea famous, had nothing on my grandmother. And my grandmother literally, she carried a 9mm and she had a blackjack. That's what the police would carry. And she was known for hitting people with her blackjack around town because she ran a speakeasy. Whenever she brought us on, whenever she started taking care of us, she was a registered nurse. And she gave up that because she had 4 kids at home. She ended up building us a little house. I think the house may have been couldn't have been more than 900 square feet. And we all lived in that house. We shared beds. The bedroom, it was a 2-bedroom, 900 square foot house, but she ruled with an iron fist. And it was, I'm so appreciative now because I look at the kids now and they have no clue, with opening your mouth when you're not supposed to and getting that hand all up in your head, and beat out in public, cussed out in public. It was no nonsense, but the respect level. And again, she was 4'10", and she tried to beat us up until we were probably like 12. And she was, she was right here on us, trying to still discipline us, with a belt, and anything else. But I say this with a smile. I miss her. She passed years ago. And I wish my kids would have been able to meet her and spend some time with her. But man, she made me that's where I learned that don't you ever give up. Don't ever let somebody see you weak. And if you fall, get back up every single time. And that's why I learned how to fight. Even my best friend, we used to fight all the time. Literally, I'd come in the house and, she would say, I was a crybaby. They, my brothers and sisters now, that's the big story now that I was the crybaby. But I learned early on how to get myself out of stuff. Because, for example, if one got beat in my house, everybody got beat. And she beat us by the age. So I figured out real early, that let me just start crying when the first one gets hit. So I'm falling out. By the time she gets to me, one, she's tired, and she's like, boy, I ain't even put my hands on you. Go sit down somewhere. Bruh, I learned real early on to, you can play your cards right, but sometimes I get beat, but most of the time being the baby, and I hung out with her most more than anybody else, I was spared the rod sometimes.
Now, you made a reference to the reputation and the name preceding you in most situations. Um, when you look at the makeup of Washington and the layout of that town, um, when we talk about social issues, crime, poverty, what have you. A lot of it is just based off of either a denial of resources or a lack of resources. So, would you characterize the activity and some of the pull towards the streets or to sell or to fight or to steal, is that rooted in poverty in your opinion, or is it just rooted in a lack of things to do as far as the community goes and how that town was set up and the things that you have access to as a youth growing up in that community?
I think back then, and now that that we're adults, I can see the difference. Back then, it's completely different than now. There's not much to do. There's no industry, back home. Neighborhoods are falling apart. But back in the day, we had a bunch of activities. Everybody was involved in sports. Everybody, because that's all we had. We couldn't afford much, so and it got us out of the house and gave my grandmother 2 hours of peace without us being in the house. But it definitely, man, it's seeing the difference between now and then and understanding, being educated and be exposed to a whole lot more now and understanding limited resources, poverty, lack of opportunities, redlining, and systemic racism. Like understanding all that now, it's most of the time, and even and we'll touch on it, but the trouble that most of us got in was because of there was lack of opportunities, and we had summer jobs. It was CETA. That's what we all got excited about. Who got a summer job? If you got a job at the street department, you made more money, so everybody tried to get a job at the street department instead of Parks and Rec. It was just, man, just the lack of resources, the lack of, in our community. And again, looking now, the difference, there just wasn't an industry there for anybody to really do anything unless you were, college educated, with professions, doctor, lawyer. That's what a lot of Washington is made up of. Doctors and lawyers that live on one side of the town. But as far as for our neighborhood, it was hustlers, man. We had a few families that did well, but for the most part, it was hustle. It was hustle. So a couple, remember they used to call it beer gardens. It was beer gardens and nightclubs and speakeasies. One that my grandmother ran, she ran a speakeasy. It was just the lack of, man. So we made do with what we had, and unfortunately, when crack cocaine came into our community, a lot of people who didn't have made a whole lot of money. Unfortunately, it was poisoning your community. But when you're living, it's feast or famine. It's either the motto back then was even when you sold to relatives, and we were close enough to the streets, but not in the streets, that, people would literally say, well, if they're going to get it off somebody, they might as well get it off me. People, selling to your family members, so it was, knowing what I know now, man, it was set up a certain way for us to only go so far. And Lord forbid, take away, public housing and food stamps, and welfare. Just unfortunate that, most people got hooked, just like you get hooked on crack, got hooked on a system. And I could go deep into that, as far as prison system and disenfranchisement and not being, if somebody gets arrested, not being allowed to come back home because, that your wife or girlfriend lived in public housing. So it was set up in a way for us not to do so well. So we had to do what we had to do in our neighborhood. Rob, steal, cheat, whatever you had to do to make it, unfortunately.
So as you're recounting what the layout and some of what the makeup is, I know that's not all encompassing of Washington, and it's not reflective of all the citizens there. Given that I spent a lot of time down in that area, I got a good insight and a good look at how the community function. One of the things that always struck me about coming down there to visit and hanging out around that town was, it's always buzzing. It's very communal. And like you said, everybody knows everybody, whether you get along or don't get along. The thing that stuck out to me was just how many tremendous athletes that you guys had in that pocket. You have W&J right there in that town, and they were tremendous with their athletic programs during those late 80s, early 90s. A lot of good things going on. Your school producing great basketball teams, great football teams, tremendous track athletes. And then not only that, if you're not an athlete, you still have those support activities like band. You got a great community pool right there in that city. And then you have rec centers and hoops and things that kids can still find a way to be kids and develop themselves. And even if you're going to get into, what is finding yourself and maturing type of trouble, you still had outlets.
Yeah.
So, for you, I always remember listening to the side conversations at school between you, Mike Ed, and Kush. And then, when Bean would show up and present himself here and there, I always heard Jollick Manor. Tell me a little bit about that.
Growing up, and it was, you had, families. You knew the Sadlers, you knew the Cushenberries, you knew the Ellises, you knew the Pattersons. Like there were names that you knew, like of families. And I tell everybody, we had like a circle of life. No matter what community you went to, like that family, whether you got along with them or not, there was always a matriarch, and who would check you no matter whose child you were. So we literally had a community, and even from the pastors, back then, it was just different. Everybody knew each other. We repped our hoods. We had Lintown, we had Jollick Manor, we had Maple Terrace. You had different sections, and I ain't gonna lie, Mike Ed grew up in 7th Ward. That really wasn't a real hood. So, he was close to the hood, but he wasn't hood. Now Jollick Manor, where Kush grew up, there are a lot of athletes. Like you said, Will Washington had some of the athletes. Looking back, if we would have had people nurturing us and pointing us in the right direction, Lord forbid we had what they have today, you would have a whole bunch of D1 players coming out and possibly even playing in the NFL. But Jollick Manor, if you had to go Jollick Manor and play backyard football, they used to have a hill. It was literally a field with a hill. And Lord forbid, bro, you got caught on that hill, you may not make it home. Because it was lights out. You better not cry. And you're getting slammed. It was just a different beast, Jollick Manor was. Because they were a little bit more hood than we were. Because that was the projects. That was the projects, and where we grew up in Lintown, it was a little more, it wasn't suburbs, but at least we had houses. They might have been small, but it was houses. But like you said, man, we've had athletes, that you would have thought that, would have gone and done well. But for some reason, just like most hoods, they say there's a whole lot of people that come up through our neighborhood who probably better than Michael Jordan. We had a guy named Brian Davis. If you don't believe me, you can look him up. Brian Davis came out with Emmitt Smith in high school. Brian Davis was the #1 running back in front of Emmitt Smith coming out of high school. He ended up going to Pitt, which was not even 30 miles away from us, where everybody thought that was, probably the Achilles heel because he was too close. And it just didn't, it just didn't work out. So, and we all got those stories. But man, it was a brotherhood. It was we taught each other how to be tough because a lot of us didn't have dads. So all we had was us, to bounce things off of, and or even, how we always make fun of each other. That was like a little just a little defense mechanism. We ain't have nothing else, so we make fun of each other's dads because none of us had our dads around. So we always crack on somebody's dad and say I saw him somewhere, knowing we ain't see him. So it was a tough love that we had to learn early on, man. And again, sports was our outlet. But it's just unfortunate that, we played to play, and we played on natural ability. Like we wasn't going to the gym. You tell me to go work out in high school, I still got it, by the way. You see that? So like just naturally, like we just had it, and we were just natural athletes. So we really didn't have to do anything. So we thought that would get us, and that did us well, for what we wanted and what we got out of life. But it was a community, man. And again, the kids today, I'm sure my hood's the same as yours. They don't understand what we had, even though we didn't have much.
So, when you get your first opportunity to play organized athletics and be on a team, where does that start at for you?
That started early on. My best friend, my brother, who was not even barely 2 years older than me, we started Pee Wee League at 5. I didn't want to play. My grandmother said, "You're gonna take your and get tough and play you some football." So because Bean was playing, and Bean, everybody knew Bean. Bean has just always been just the loud kid, the exceptional athlete, like not afraid of anything. Like he's a legend where we are from, because everybody knew Coffee Bean, because he was wild as I don't know what. And I tell people he was Batman, I was Robin. People don't even realize that we were together so much, because he was so extra that they didn't even notice me, being there. But that's organized football, man, and that's where it came from. And again, it was from me just being around my friends. And as we got a little bit older, like I said, I was always a good athlete, but I wasn't the one that was like, "Coach, yeah, put me in." It was just, I would do enough. And when they needed me to do something, I had the athletic ability, to do it, but I wasn't going to do it on a regular basis. But it helped me being around them, because those were my friends, didn't have much in life but my boys. So as we grew up, even through middle school, and I say this, and you said it earlier, there's a lot of stuff I had to get over, because there was a lot of stuff that I was passed up over on because I wasn't the loud kid. Even though I was, a good athlete, sometimes they say that the squeaky wheel gets oiled, and if you can play, you're gonna play. But if you're the quiet kid and don't say much, until you get mad, and then you try to just wreck everything, and they be like, "Yeah, I knew you had it in you." But again, and as we went through middle school and high school, like those are the boys I grew up with, the Kush, the Mike Ed, who were more aggressive at the time than me, because I was more kind of like I said, reserved. And like I said, I would get aggressive when I had to. And believe it or not, I didn't really understand how good of an athlete I was until after y'all left, even from college, because I've always played with these exceptional athletes. And then when y'all weren't around, nobody was around, and I'm playing against other people, I'm like this is easy. Like this is literally easy. I tell Kush, back in college, my last 2 years, I was like, everything seemed like it was moving in slow motion. You know what I mean? Because I played with people who knew how to play, who was aggressive, and then, I just turned it up from there. And I tell them, I probably, after y'all left, I don't think I ever ran full speed. I was like, I just ran as fast as I had to run, and I was usually faster than most people. So it was cool, man. But I think for sports, for me, and organized sports was more of a brotherhood for me than me trying to say, "Ooh, let me go," go to the next level. So I appreciate the brotherhood that I was able to make, from Pee Wee League all the way through college.
Let's talk a little bit about that experience and that time coming through Wash High. What is the hallmark and the foundation of that program for the time that you were coming through that school? Um, can you give us a characterization of what it took to be a Wash High Prexie, what the standard was before you were coming in there? And then, you mentioned those great names. You're talking about Coffee Bean or Terry Vaughn,
Mhm.
Mike Edwards, Keith Cushenberry, who, we all played together at Edinboro, and I got to see what type of personality Bean was like, on his visits up there, and always enjoyed, his presence because he livened things up. But, those names for the time period that you guys came through there and put your mark down, not only in football, but basketball as well,
Yeah.
on the track as well. And, I got to see that firsthand look at the three of you, Mike Edwards, Keith Cushenberry, and yourself. Take me back to those late '80s, early part of 1990, and just kind of give me a layout of what the expectation was for your collective of guys coming through that Wash High program.
The best way up, so people today can understand, it was like playing for Nick Saban. It was like playing for Nick Saban, without a doubt. But we say this: by the time we got to college, even when we got to college, we were like, "Oh, this is it? Like, this is all we got to do?" Because we were so our coach Guy Montecalvo prepared us so much, early on, and you weren't going to play if you didn't put in the work. And that I think that's what he instilled in us, that the no nonsense, the you don't showboat, you don't dance in the end zone. And the legacy that we came behind, it was the Brian Davises, the Sean McKenzie's, these people that we looked up to in grade school. We were like, oh, we coming behind them. So, when you got there, and it was interesting, because as freshman, sophomore, some of them moved up. Like, I didn't move up. Bean and them moved up to varsity. So it was, by the time I got there as a sophomore, it was just no nonsense. It was run like a business. It was run like a business. And the thing, again, it's the Nick Saban mentality, that if you don't follow the rules of the program, I don't care how good you are, you will not play. And we had the athletic ability, all of us. It was just, none of us had, there's nothing like playing with your brother, knowing what he's going to do, knowing, that you ain't got to worry about nothing. He's going to do what he's going to do what he said he's going to do. He's going to do his job. You're going to do your job. And when you're just, it's all coming back. Like, when you're out there, like, you're just playing, you're having fun. It's not work. And a lot of people don't understand. And I got to go back to me, Bean, and Kush. People don't understand. I don't think I don't even know if we got scored on, like, in the air. And I was the safety, and we had two corners. Like, there was no two safeties, two corners. Bean and Kush would lock it down, and I was fast enough to get to wherever I had to get to. Wasn't nobody beating us deep. So like they never had to worry about passing. And there's nothing like that, man. Playing for a coach that was almost like a father figure, because none of us had one, who would check you no matter where you were, who you thought you were, and we respected it. It wasn't that we was afraid of him. It was more we didn't want to disappoint him. You know, by some of the, you know, we were boys, so we did boy stuff. But when it came to with he didn't play 1-0. And the reminder, so when we got to college, you know, and I'm jumping, but when we got there, when we had Coach E, you know, which was another one of the best coaches that I've ever played for, the defensive back coach that we both played for, it was that same thing. It was, he knows what he's talking about. You know, Coach E played at the next level, and he, you know, I didn't always agree with him, but and I let it be known with our back and forth. But I respected him. But because, you know, because we recognize real, and I know it's corny, but where we come from, when somebody's being genuine, we know who's being genuine and who's not. So it was cool, man. That he laid the foundation and made Coach Montecalvo laid the foundation and made everything easy in sports after that.
You know, so you know, you come out of Wash High in 1991. I'm a class of '93 out of Cheney over in Youngstown, Ohio.
Yeah.
Right, where the Football Hall of Fame is. You know, all of that good stuff when it comes to that game between the lines.
I'll do a little
But you know, I end up coming over to Pennsylvania because for me it was the best option after, you know, some of the schools that I wanted to go to fell through late. Um, for me, I wanted to get out of Youngstown because of that rise in crime. You know, the murder rate was going up really high. I had the opportunity to walk on at YSU, stay local. They were winning national titles year after year, but that I had that fear that I would become a statistic in the street, staying in Youngstown, and that drove me to want to be anywhere else but there. So, you know, coming to Edinboro, didn't know much about it prior to getting there, taking a visit, and you know, my father was out of the home at the time, has a great athletic reputation, but I went through that process really by myself. You know, my mother didn't know how to guide me and point me in the right direction when it came to sports and pursuing that opportunity. All I knew is I had a chance to go to college and I needed to get out of my environment and be somewhere different to find myself and settle in. So, you know, getting to Edinboro, you know, just like you described, come out of a real discipline program, a coach that doesn't take anything off of anybody and has an expectation and a standard that you're going to do it the right way, and not only the right way, you're going to do it his way.
Yep.
So, you know, when you come into this college environment where it's not a choice that you're coming out for football, you've been selected, and you're entering a pool of other guys who've been selected and targeted and brought there specifically for a goal and a reason. You know, you have to get into that that lion's den and find your position and find where you fall on the in the rank and file. You know, Keith Cushenberry came in with me. Mike Edwards was already there and established and doing well.
Yeah.
So, you know, getting to meet those two guys and seeing that personality and what they brought to the game in terms of their athleticism, in terms of accepting challenges and not backing down, you know, I knew from that experience that I had chosen the right place for me. You're classmates with those guys, but you don't get there until the spring of '94, you know, and I know there's a story behind that and why. And before you tell me about that, you know, what were your hopes and what were your options leaving your senior year of Washington High and then getting to the point where Edinboro ultimately became your choice? You know, can you kind of take me through that time period of graduating, leaving high school, and then getting to Edinboro and joining the rest of us and, continuing your athletic pursuits?
Definitely. What we want to know, because we had a bunch of, well, not a bunch, we had a few schools coming to see all of us. And the funniest story, Middle Tennessee State came. And the coach kept looking at me like we were all together, me being Cush, Mike, like we were all together talking to, and Brian Milligan. We were all talking to the coach. And the coach kept kind of looking at me. And he was like, you're pretty, like, you're bigger than, like, Cush and B. Like you're bigger than them. He said, how much you weigh? Well, no, I lied. I said, I'm about 190. Bean said, no, you're not. He said, you're only about 165. So like we had people coming, but we were like, but again, that was us. Like we would call each other out no matter who was around. So they really didn't have too many offers because again, they were the standouts. Like I did well, but I wasn't all conference, Fab 22, because they had all those slots. I played with so many good players. But so I decided, you mentioned W&J. I decided to do the W&J route because I was like, I'm smart enough to be in there. I'm going to go that route to prove that everybody in the town that we grew up, that Sadlers are more than just what they say we are. Robbers, drug dealers. So I was doing it to prove and knowing that if I graduated from W&J College, because it's an excellent academic school, especially for somebody who looked like us to come out of there and graduate, you pretty much write your own ticket. So I chose to go to W&J. And that's when my life changed. We were very close. I'm not going to say I was a drug dealer, but we were so close to the streets. We knew everybody that was doing anything in the streets, and we hung out with people that was doing stuff. And I may even have once or twice, may have took something and gave something to somebody for somebody, So, but drug dealer, not. My freshman year, going into W&J, I wrecked on my motorcycle, trying to show off, trying to be Evel Knievel. And I wrecked on my motorcycle, so I didn't get to go into football camp and leave like everybody else did. So I was at home. And being at home, being in that environment, I was hanging out with the wrong people, doing some of the wrong things. And a year went by. Then I was able to go back to W&J. So I took summer classes at W&J. And I was able to go back. But I was in the street, but not. I was no drug dealer, but I was in the street. And my grandmother calls me as I'm transitioning into like the new fall semester into W&J, getting ready to go full time and get ready for camp. She calls me and says, they got a warrant for your arrest. And I'm like, nah, they ain't got a warrant for my arrest. And I tell people this story. I said, I hate to throw my brother under the bus. I said, but I think they got the wrong Sadler. I think they got, Jimmy. Because Jimmy was a fighter and always in trouble. And they're like, nah, it's you. Because of sports, they knew who I was. I literally told the coach, I'll be right back, coach. Let me clear this up. Because W&J wasn't but 5 minutes, 10 minutes away from the jail. So I turned myself in and said, look, I'm here to clear up any misunderstanding. They said, nope, you're under arrest. An informant said that you sold them a piece. You see how small that is. A piece of crack cocaine. You're under arrest. Never been suspended from school. Scared, not knowing. Here we go. Like I didn't know, and I know that I didn't, sell a piece of crack cocaine to an undercover informant. But they got me scared, and what I know now is, they get you, they scare you, they process you, they put you in the county jail where everybody in the county jail. It was just like going back to high school because most of the people in the neighborhood was there, and everybody was so shocked that they saw me because they know I wasn't that type of dude. So long story short, the attorney tells me to take a plea bargain. He says, take a plea bargain. You're not going to get in any trouble. You've never been in trouble. We'll reduce it down and, you'll have a record, but nothing will really happen. You won't have to go to jail. I was like, I don't got to go to jail. That's all I'm concerned about. They marched the guy in. It was a little white guy. I immediately said to the attorney, I know I didn't sell nothing to him. Basically telling my attorney, the rules in the hood, you never sell to anybody white, especially if you don't know him. So I'm telling him, he's like, don't worry about it. You're going to get out of here. So the judge pleads down, but it's still a felony. It's still a felony conviction. We plead down. I get 6 months house arrest. Literally tell me I have to leave Washington County. I'm literally banned from Washington County. So I can't go to W&J. I now moved to Pittsburgh with my mom, who I never really lived with, and building this relationship, and stayed in Pittsburgh for a semester. And some time I had, served my little house arrest time. And then Cushenberry, Cush said, Sadler, why don't you come to Edinboro? We're up at Edinboro. Come up there, you can come up there and play. I had nothing else to do. I wasn't playing football anymore. I still wanted to play. And I came for a visit during the winter. Wrong time to go to Edinboro and try to recruit somebody to come play football. I don't know how y'all was doing it, but I adapted eventually. But like now this one, you're getting the exclusive right now. So I got to tell you this. I don't know if you ever heard this story. So I'm up there on a visit. We're partying at the Coin, in that house, that little apartment that was right next to it. You know what I'm talking about. And I was like, and we partying, and I really don't know anybody, but me, I can go with the best of them. So I'm partying, and I see this girl, and I'm like, Kush, who is that over there? He's like, man, don't even try it. He's like, she got a man. Don't even go there. I was like, Kush, who is that? He said, man, that's I ain't saying no names, but I ain't saying no names, but you know who I'm talking about. So he's like, man, just don't. She got a man, it's cool. I was locked in though. The one thing about me, when I lock in, I lock in. So the couple days, I think I was up there for the weekend, and then I saw her in Towers. And I was like, Kush, who is that? And, I was like, I'm coming to school up here. And that's going to be my girlfriend. That was one of the reasons that helped me come to Edinboro. Of course, Mike and all y'all was up there and had fun, but that was one of the reasons why I came to Edinboro to play football. So that's how I got to Edinboro, and there's a whole story after that really kind of set me to, kind of in place to, my advocacy and my never give up, mentality. But that's how I got to Edinboro, man. Got in some trouble. Got down a woman chasing a woman.
All right, so let's talk about your arrival. So, when I look back and think in my memory banks, the first thing that jumps out is the time that you were there and you weren't able to play yet. Your eligibility hadn't quite kicked in, and we're playing Slippery Rock University, down by 3 scores, and
Yeah.
in the fourth quarter, 8 minutes to go, and just make this furious comeback. And this is the first time where the nickname resonated with why they call you this. You see Jerry Roberts pick off a pass attempt on a bobbled punt, run it back in for a score. And, all the guys that are on the field, rush down to the corner of the end zone to celebrate. And then there's a guy in a wife beater twirling his shirt in the air like a helicopter. This is long before Petey Pablo ever even was known to anybody. And he jumps on the top of the pile, and the yellow flags just come out. So, that let me know that, the type of passion and the how far you were willing to go for the things that you were excited about.
Yeah.
Being that I was your teammate and not only your teammate, we shared the position.
Yeah.
And I watched your progression of a guy who's coming in after the season has started, unheralded, having to make his way, fight, claw, scrape for everything that is given. When I think about the mentality, the effort, and how you played during our time together, the thing that I was always fascinated with was just that you didn't even know how fast you actually were, but you were probably easily 1, 2, or 3 fastest guys on the team. And we had a team full of very capable, very athletic guys. I saw your football IQ go from just doing what you're told to being able to really impose your will during practice, during games, and make plays that others could not make in those situations. So, 95, we're finally getting our chance, able to kind of make an impact without having to look over your shoulder. And when I say look over your shoulder, it's not because you're afraid or anything like that, but we follow in the footsteps of some really great, tremendous guys at our position. We have an all-time great like Steve Russell leaving. Rick Walker, unfortunately, his career got cut short due to a shoulder injury. But in terms of understanding football defense and what was expected and asked of him, he was one of the best people that I've ever seen break down a scheme and play his position and know where to be. So I took a lot of things from him. And then, it's finally that time for, in my opinion, for me to shine and get my chance to prove what I'm capable of. And, now I have a guy who I have to contend with and kind of keep at bay. And he's chomping at the bit to get out there. Coming up under Coach Elliott and what he brought to our position group and the things that he taught us and the way that he explained the game, broke down the game, and really, challenged you to be better than what you thought you were in your head. I'd like to hear your perspective, your opinion of your transition into Edinboro from a player standpoint, and then, how you utilize that throughout your years there to, impose yourself on the competition and leave your mark and legacy at Edinboro and leave away with a really respectable career and a satisfactory career where you don't have to sit back all these years later and have regrets.
Yeah, it's excellent breakdown, because it's interesting. I've always been in that position. I've always been in a position where I didn't feel like I was given the credit that I should have been given, as a player, and coming in and play. And remember, I was a receiver. I was a receiver first, and then I switched over to DB. But scout team, like it never bothered me because all through high school, like I said, all those players that I played with always got to shine, and I always had to prove myself and do a little bit more to get noticed. So that's why, whenever we go scout team, against LJ and them and against the defense, I was like, put me on offense. I'm gonna make I'm doing whatever I can to make everybody look bad. And so I actually I enjoyed kind of just, and it gave me the opportunity to learn the process, learn who did what, the players, like the attitude, who Mike Sims. I got to learn about Mike Sims. I tell my kids now, I was like, I played with a guy who I couldn't stand as a person, but if I wanted somebody to be on the field with me, it would be Mike Sims. But that whole process, man, that was just my life of sitting and waiting and not knowing if I was going to get the chance. So when I came on, it was, look, you out here with the homeboys, have fun, and whatever happens, happens, and learn something while you're doing it. And as we transition, and like you said, as those great players left and we stepped into the role, and then Coach E came, it was almost I used to get upset with Coach E because some players came in and just got the green light. Just got the green light, and if I felt like I knew I wasn't ready when I wasn't ready. So so when you were playing, trust me, I was watching everything you were doing, and and we were doing films. I'm watching again. I'd always go back and forth with Coach E when he tell me, "Well, Sadler, yeah, you might have got the pick, but you were out of position." But for me, it was, but Coach E, I got the pick. It's not the goal. But Coach E being Coach E, Sadler, you don't listen. So, but that was me. But I always played Robin, man. And playing with you, Cush, watching Steve and watching how the 95 team and, what everybody did, I learned, as I was in the program, that I could contribute. And one thing I always did, even through high school, Warren, I played that way of looking over my shoulder, fearing that, Lord, if I do something wrong, they're going to take me out. So it was always like, all right, well, do I really need to learn it? Or because, I ain't going to get to play the way I want to play anyway, until I start, understanding the game more and listening to y'all saying, Sadler, just shut up. Just say, to Coach E. And he going to go on to the next play. So listening and understanding and saying, you know what, I can play here. That's what I said, after you guys left, it was like, oh, this is easy. Like, I've learned so much from Coach E and over the years, and understanding that I am a good athlete, that, like I'm for one moment, I kind of, tipped my own. It was like, this is my team. Like, I can do whatever I want out here. To the point, I don't know if I ever told you this. I don't want to get off on the tangent, but my senior year run, I went home. I missed the first game. I missed the first, because we is always telling each other who was what.
Right.
So I forget who came in, and somebody was like, "Yo, man, I'm getting my whole stuff paid for," and I was like, "You getting what?" I was like, "Nah, they need NIL back then." I was like, I need more, Holman. Like, y'all got to give me more. I'm not letting this dude come in who hadn't played it down, and like, I'm the captain of the team, and I'm trying to figure out how I'm making ends meet. I wrote one note. I went home, and they called me. What's Calhoun? Was that his name? Yeah. I left. I was like, I'm out. I'm going home. I went home. And they punished me. They was like, all right, come back. But they punished me and made me sit out the first game. And that's why I was standing on the sideline of the first game, because I was like, I'm not, I'm the man, and you gonna pay the man. So, but I learned a lot, man. But again, the way you structured that and framed it, my transition was I've always been in that position of trying to prove myself. So the humility, it was not new to me to sit out for a year and watch everybody play, and and slowly try to weave myself into the roster.
Can you talk a little bit about the seasons beyond 95? My last year with you is 96. We don't play borough football that season. 6-4, come up 2 games short in the conference of even competing for the conference title. But then, after 96 and 97 and 98, you have a 4-6 season, and then a 4-7 season. So for you, coming in on the front end of some, high level success and competitive teams, how do you navigate the tail off and leading a team that's not kind of meeting the standard? How do you stay engaged and motivated through that process? And then, looking back and putting a cap on that as your career wraps up, were you satisfied with the effort that you had gave and what you had done through your 4 years there in the end?
And again, well framed. The first 2 years, I had fun. When Coach E left, and I didn't have anybody else. Like, I didn't have anybody else that I came in with, back in the secondary. So it was different. I felt like I was by myself. But DK came, and I had a lot of fun, but it was just different because they came with a different mentality. I was like, I still had that Coach E in me, and Calhoun trying to tell me, don't drop step, or don't backpedal, or don't jam off that. And I'm like basically, you can't tell me, like, you can't coach me right now, because what you're saying doesn't make sense to me, because I learned and I watched other players do it and it worked. So I was literally I was out there doing most of the time, especially when they moved me to corner, because I bumped back from free safety to corner. Like, I basically was doing my own thing, not the detriment, to hurt the team, but I was like, I'll just be a man to man. Like, I got this out here. Like, don't worry about me. I got this. But then I because we had GT, so like I still had a little bit of that old school, let's we're gonna do what we gotta do, and we're gonna play hard-nosed football out here. So I still had some of it. But again, man, when you play with people that you respect and have fun, and you respect the coach, not saying that I didn't respect Coach Calhoun, because he was a great guy. But I think, and I had in my head that I was going to leave with Coach E. And for a while, I kept saying I should have left. But I made the most out of it, man. I finished up. Boy, you getting it all out of me. Not saying that I became the biggest talker on the field all game. Like, that's all I did was talk to get. But again, we know if I can get in your head, I got you. And it came down to the point where after I graduated, I was like, okay, cool. I know, like, the last 2 years I balled out of control. I did enough. Like, let me get some clippings. And that's why when you be posting stuff for you, I'll be like, man, I ain't got none of that. I was like, I ain't got nothing from college. Come to find out, I don't know if you remember her, the female, the blonde. She's like a little thick. She was in the sports department. She would, if you saw her, you would know who I'm talking about. Long story short, I went to her and I was like, hey, can I get any of my media stuff? Like, remember Sean, the sports director? She said, he told us to not take any pictures of you. He said that you were the biggest talker that he ever heard, and he didn't like the way you talked on the field. And that's why I have no memorabilia of those last couple of years. I mean, and I asked her, I was like, just go look to see what you have. 1-0. There was nothing. And you're the first person I ever told that. There was nothing. And I was like, that's just the way I played the game. I was like, my goal was, let me get in your head. Now, I 50% of the battle as a DB, I got you. But after the game is, what's up? We're cool. That's how I played the game. But so I kind of went on my own little road, man. I kind of did my own thing because I was so well taught, pre those last 2 years.
You graduate, get your bachelor's in communications. Do you go to Florida right after leaving school, or do you go back to Pittsburgh?
No. So, and I don't know if you know, our pro day, we work out for Jacksonville and Cleveland. And I pulled, like, they didn't give us no time to warm up. Deck was there, GT was there, Q was there. And I think the fourth, because I was running track. I was running track for the track coach, and we were down in Florida, and I pulled my hamstring. So I was like, I think I ran a 4.43, like they let us warm up like 2 seconds. And he had, and the scouts asked me to, run it again, and I popped my hamstring. And like I couldn't do nothing. I went, I could always bench. I still, I think I outbenched everybody like my size, like decking all them on the 225. But they were like, you know what, you're pretty much a dime a dozen, and you're D2. We can find you anywhere. It's like, why don't you go down and arena football is big now. So I actually went home, stayed home for a little bit. Then I realized I could not be at home after my mom asked me. I come in at 1 o'clock one day, and she said, "Where you been?" I said, "Oh yeah, I'm out. I can't do this." So I go to Florida, and that's when Gruden was coaching the Predators. So I did my own PR. I put little the little tape that I could find from Edinboro, sent it to him, and called and politic. One thing I can do, I can politic. I can talk my way through the door. And they were like, "Come on down, you can work out, and we'll give you an open workout." I went. That was when I go. I graduated in '99. I ended up going down there in 2000, early 2002. Well, no, it's like late 2001, 2002, and 2001. My fault. 2002, 2001, and worked out for the Predators. That's when it was big as a DB. Did real decent. So they say anybody wants to stay after and run some routes. So I was like, oh, I'm about to eat them up. I'm about to show them what I can really like. Because I used to always have the best receiver on the team, even as a DB. Because when the ball's in the air, I'm going to go get it. So what happened was literally, walk through. We stripped down, and we were just kind of running routes like a 7-on-7. And with the arena league, you could the motion then come up. I did that, man, and it was a streak. And I was flying through the ball. DB safety coming over top. He's looking for the ball. I'm looking for the ball. We smashed into each other. My tooth went through my lip, and I burst my patella tendon in my knee. After the first practice, I'm staying after showing that, like I belong here. And it was balling out. 1-0, I got up, and I just said, I'm done. I was like, I'm done.
Now, to shift away from the athletic lane and that part of your life, you have this tremendous story, and me as your buddy and your friend, I understand the spirit and the method behind some of the madness, but can you kind of go into what leads you into this life of advocacy, activism, business, and restorative justice? What are those things that pull you into that, and why is that so important to you and at the center of your life?
Because I just didn't, like when we were younger, we just didn't know about politics and what goes on around us. So the transition from that, me giving up football, I decided that I was in Orlando, University of Central Florida was there. I was going, Beans there, Mike Ed's down there. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna just stay here and go to graduate school and get my master's in international business. Because I'm about to run the world. So I got to go get the international business degree. Start studying for the GMAT, kind of getting ready and filling out the paperwork for the financial aid, to get ready to to grad school. And they were like, you can't get financial aid. I'm like, what are you talking about? I was like, my undergrad was pretty much paid for. I was like, I don't owe anybody any money. They're like, you don't qualify for financial aid. And I couldn't figure out why. And that's when, the woman actually said, she's like, you need to research your background. So that's when I started researching the background, finding out. And I was like, you know what? I did get in that trouble a while ago. Let me see what's going on. So I reached in my background. That's the first time I realized that I was a convicted felon because of the charge, the plea bargain that I took years ago left me a convicted felon, even though I just spent 2 days in jail through processing, but never did any jail time. So for me, somebody uneducated with the judicial system, I'm thinking, well, you got to go to jail to be a felon. That wasn't the case. So I found out I'm a convicted felon. So now I realized that's when, a felon at the time could not get financial aid. You could not graduate, and then I started researching, and that's when the 2000 election with the Bush, they say Bush stole, the election. I was in Florida. So they were talking about people being purged in felony convictions. And so if you and I had the same name, instead of researching and finding out who was the convicted felon, they would just take both of us off the voting list. And Florida had, I think, 600,000 people who were disenfranchised. So I'm really getting engulfed in it now, because now I'm thinking about back home. How many people have went to jail? How many felons for drug possession and sale, intent to sell? So I'm doing the research, and I'm finding that that I can't get into graduate school. Baby, take that up. That's my baby girl. So I find out that's why I couldn't get into graduate school. So I find out, I was like, so what do I got to do to get this taken off so I can go back to school? They said, people was like, well, you got to get your record expunged, and you got to go back to Pennsylvania. I was like, good, no problem. I did with it, because remember I told you the judge told me to leave, like, get out of here, or you're gonna find some trouble. So I left, and I come back. She's like, next time you come back, I want you to have your degree. So I literally come back home to Pennsylvania, go to Washington, see Judge Odell Seneca, who was the judge in front of me, who knew who I was. I was real close friends with her niece. And she's like, David, you did everything that I asked you to do. We're going to get your record expunged. She sent me downstairs to the courthouse, like the day that I was there, to get all the paperwork. And they were like, well, you can't get it expunged. And I'm like, the judge sent me down here to take care of this. Get back upstairs. She said, adjudication wasn't withheld. Because you took the plea bargain, it said that you were guilty. Now, if I would have fought it and they found me guilty, I could get my record expunged. But I said that I was guilty. So, and I didn't know that back at the time. When you take a plea bargain, you're pleading, you're saying, no, I'm guilty. So she says, you got to get a gubernatorial pardon from the governor. I'm like, what is that? And what's the process? So she said, you got to fill out an application. So I go back to Florida, fill out the application, submit all, everything from letters of recommendation, you name it, I send it in. And as I'm researching, I'm calling them on a regular basis. They said the backlog is 9 years. Like, they're not going to, and they may never get to your case. And a lot of people aren't like me, they don't just, keep pounding the pavement and trying to figure this thing out. And with the thing that motivated me, I said, I'm not going to die a felon. And again, through all my educating myself in the rejection, because now I go back to Florida after, the expungement and submitting the application. And I said, you know what, I can make it. I'm going to just tell people, me being naive, said, I'm going to just tell people what happened. Like, it was a mistake, and, that's all it was. And I got a degree, and I'm a nice guy, charismatic. I started putting that I'm a felon on applications. Wouldn't get any callback. Education meant nothing. No matter how nice I was, meant nothing. As soon as they saw that check on the application that I'm a convicted felon, I'm considered a liability. So nobody's going to hire you. So now when I'm working, I ain't never had a problem with working. I'm working construction. I'm spraying termites. I started my own car wash. So all these things came about because I kept getting no. And it goes back to what you said, the transitioning, I've always had to prove myself. So this was nothing new for me. Like, I knew what fight that I had. Let me take that back. I didn't know what fight. I know I was going to be fighting like that, but I had it in me to see it through the end. And then I pretty much, and people don't know this, I was homeless. I was homeless in Florida. I had to go I didn't stay with Mike Ed and them, but I stayed with my buddy that I moved to Orlando with. His name's Tony Peters. I moved in with him and his fiance because I was homeless. I couldn't call home. Like I was the one like that was going to transcend everything, and couldn't nobody help me. So I ended up, because the money, I wasn't making any money. I was working like crazy, but I was barely making minimum wage on 3 jobs. And anybody working more than 2 and 3 jobs, you ain't making it. So got to the point, I was dodging the repo man, parking, blocks away, and before I got evicted from my apartment. They finally caught it with me, got that, and I was about to get evicted, and that's when I think that's when the election went on. And again, I'm educating myself, but I'm like, I didn't realize the numbers of Black men that were disenfranchised. We don't get pretrial diversion; they get us, they convict us, because the conviction rate, once you get in the system, you're in the system. It's almost impossible to get out of. So I'm redoing the research, and I said I got to do something. About a year and a half went by. It was just me struggling. And I was watching Forrest Gump one night, and Forrest ran and Forrest just happened to be at the right place at the right time all the time. And I was like, you know what? I don't know what this means, but that's one of my favorite shows. Then I saw a show about a female slave trying to get north from the South, and people would help her along the way. And I'm creative. I put the two together and said, I'm going to hand deliver my clemency application to the governor of Pennsylvania, because the first one, they never got back to me. They never got back to me after the first one. So I said, I gotta let them know I'm homeless. I have nothing to lose. So I'm all in. Put my life story on one sheet of paper, send it out. We didn't have internet then. That was right before internet. Send it out to a bunch of churches, nonprofits. Nobody got back to me. And about a week before I got evicted, I went by a remote site. The #1 show in Orlando, Urban Show Radio, was doing a remote site by my apartment. I drove by in my homeboy's car, went back. Something said, take her your press release. Took her the press release. She said, hold on. I said, please just read it. If you found this important, give me a call. She said, hold on, I'm coming up on break. Let me read it. She read it and said, my brother's in state penitentiary. I want you to come in the morning and tell people what you're about to do. And I was about to walk from Orlando to Pennsylvania to hand deliver my clemency application to the governor.
So before you go into that part of it, I want to ask you this question about something that you kind of said. So, you to this point, you've done this work, you've achieved, you've defied odds, willed yourself into being a college football player, a college graduate. So you're doing all the things that do not reflect the reputation of the name that was left in Washington, Pennsylvania. And then when you say that once you start checking that box that said felon, and all of a sudden, all of that front and center judgment, judge, jury, executioner comes back into your life and throws you into this tailspin, and you're getting these rejections, you're facing these trials and tribulations, and really caught in a tailspin in terms of life, just trying to make it, where nobody is recognizing who you actually are and what your heart is made out of. You go to this radio station, deliver this presser, convince yourself that you can walk from Orlando, Florida to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania in the 90s or in the 2000s, where you could easily drive and put a sign on your car along the way and beep your horn and get there a lot faster and in comfort and in style. But you choose the difficult route. You choose the route where your friends, your family, and those that meet you would consider, hey, you're a crazy person for taking this on, because you don't know what's going to be at the end of it. What is it that beats inside of your chest and runs through your brain that tells you, I'm gonna do this, and regardless of what comes about, whether they give me clemency or not, it's worth it to you. What is that beats inside of you that says you have to do this for yourself?
Because I was the one, like if I wasn't gonna make it, who I made it that far, and who else was gonna do it? Like in my family, like this is generational stuff. And like who else was gonna do it? And I said, and most importantly, it was my grandmother. I said, I gotta do it for my grandma. Like I did all this, and her baby boy was on the right path and got knocked off. And it, like you said, it all came back, man. And I was like, I can't be that. Like I gotta do something else, because I could have easily, like you said, I could have driven, I could have called home and talked to anybody and said, I need a pound of weed. I need this, I need that. And, they'd have been like, cool, we got you. And that was never me. You know what I mean? Like I'm we laugh and joke about, people saying I'm too serious right now, but like I'm the one that likes to have fun and joke and play pranks, and it was I was dying. And I literally got to the point where I lost everything, man. I don't know if people really understand what it is to lose everything and not be able to call anybody for help. I got chill bump now. It's you gotta fight, man. You gotta fight. And I got to the point, then the girlfriend, like left, and I had nothing. And it was like, okay, I can be a little out there. I was like, well, this is what I'm gonna do. And I said, I have nothing to lose. And it was either one, no, it was, I said, I'm gonna die trying. I had no clue. I tried to prepare. How do you prepare for a marathon every day for a month? I had no money. I had $200. I didn't know. Now that you asked me that, like I didn't know. I didn't know what was going to happen. All I knew is if I can get to Harrisburg, they'll see who I am. They'll see who I am. That's all I thought about. Like they'll see who I am. They'll meet me and say, "Oh, you're that guy." And it was necessary. And and we could talk about steps and stages as I went through, but I'll just go right to the gut of it. I had sneakers, socks, shorts, fanny sack, t-shirt, and the sun visor and the tape recorder, and an ATM card with $200 on it. That's all I had to my name. And I got to the point, I think, after day 3, where my legs hurt so bad I couldn't run. I couldn't walk, actually. It was easier to run. I remember calling my mom. And this is when I knew, like, it was different. I told her, man, I still get choked up when I say this. I said, my daughter was young at the time. My daughter was like 3. And I said, oof. I said, if anything happens to me, it's okay. I was like, it's okay. Just tell her that I was like, just tell her I tried. So it was I was fighting for my life, man. And I had nothing to lose, It was, for once in my life, I was by myself. Like that solidarity and And it was just me. I got to know me in 32 days, man. I thought about suicide. Why me? Why not me? God, I was supposed to be the one that, to break the cycle. There's days I laughed, days I cried. It was an emotional roller coaster, man. But I found myself, man. But that's when life changed for me, when I realized that I was ready to die. And I wasn't afraid. I wasn't afraid to die. I'm like, and even now, like some of the stuff that I do now, people are like, man, are you sure? I fear nothing, 1-0. I don't fear anything now. I like there's nothing that any of us, if we set our mind to, that we can do. Because there were so many times that I wanted to quit. And Lord forbid, if me and you would have been there, I'd have been like, 1-0, let's stop. And as soon as you would have been like, all right, let's just stop and take a break, we'd have stopped and took a break. But when you're out there by yourself, you get caught in the mountains, and you got like 6 more miles to go, and it's pitch black on a road, no lights. Like it's a humbling experience, man. And all you got is faith. And I never feared once for my life, Like I never was afraid. Nobody ever said something crazy. Everybody, I had some people call and say, that I talked to when I got through Duluth, Georgia. I don't know if you know about Duluth, Georgia, but that's like the Klan. And I'm going right through it. And people like, man, you may want to bust around there. I was like, can't bust. Can't bust. I said I was going to walk. I'm going to walk. Nobody ever said anything negative to me. No racial slur, no anything, man. It was just me finding myself, spending time as a little boy alone, proving myself. And then it was just, again, I had to prove, I wasn't proving it to anybody else this time. Now I was proving it to myself. Like I got to do this for me, for nobody else. So, whew, boy, you took me down. I ain't one, though.
So, I'm glad that you kind of talk about some of the aesthetics of taking on an endeavor like that, because a person who hasn't gotten to that point where they feel like they have no other avenue outlet, you really can't prepare mentally, physically, financially for what's in front of you. You're essentially going into the unknown. It's no different than those who were like, I'm gonna get in this ship and
Yep.
sail into this water, and whatever is over on the other side, I want to see it. Um, you I'm sure you probably didn't take into account the terrain, the different areas that you would have to traverse through, animals, vehicles, night, day, how far you are between one food source to the next. But when you get to the point where, and I know you didn't do this continuously straight through,
Yeah.
but you had a start point and an end point in your mind, and to not even have that guarantee of a reward on the end, because that's what motivates most of us, whether it's work, relationship,
Yeah.
uh, athletics. We want the reward or the recognition or the adulation at the end of that journey. But this is something that you promised to yourself and committed to yourself. So, just being an athlete and,
Mm-hmm.
having to do conditioning, perform drills, work on your craft, to have a little bit of glory time on a Friday night or a Saturday afternoon. When you're coming to that final leg, and okay, I'm getting there. I'm getting to this place. I'm here. And then I imagine, over the course of a walk like that from Orlando, Florida to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, um, that you get a lot of time with yourself to talk, reflect, discover, who you are and what you're really made of, question some of the things that, um, you know, were behind you that put you in that position. What is that like when you actually get to the state house and you can see the end of your journey? And then, when you take me through that, what is the release like after completing that and having to contend with not knowing, whether it's going to work or not? What changes happen with you, from a ambition standpoint, a mental standpoint, and then a toughness standpoint? Can you kind of summarize some of that for me?
The last day, believe it or not, it was raining as I'm running and walking into Harrisburg. And I've been through so much over that 32 days that I just laughed because I was at peace. And I said it because of the rain. I was like, God, you're humorous. I was like, this is my cleansing. Like, now you're washing me of all that I left behind. But I was at peace, I didn't know what was going to happen. I wasn't anxious, wasn't mad, wasn't upset. There was like a calming kind of like, okay, you did what you said you were going to do, but I had to stay the night. And somebody was there from the media who got me a hotel room. I had no money left. After, sleeping outside and sleeping on park benches and motels, not hotel, motels. Like I get there the next day and they interviewed me like going there, and they're like, well, what are you going to do once you get there? I was like, I didn't plan that part. And I don't know. So I get out next morning. I get up after sleeping in a plush bed after 32 days was like unreal. I go up the steps to the Capitol, and the security guards there, and security guard actually said, I know who you are. And I'm like, okay. I was like, well, I spent a lot of time by myself, so I wasn't really standoffish. I was just kind of like, okay, thank you. I was like, I'm supposed to go. And he said, nobody's in that office. I'm like, it doesn't matter. I came to deliver the clemency application. And so I go to I was in the lieutenant governor's office. And the young lady that was there, I was like, of course, they told me nobody was there. And I was like, it's the middle of the week. Somebody's here. They're like, nah, nobody's here. And the young lady that was working the desk said, I don't even work in this department. I'm just working here today. And I was like, okay, I get it. And I just said, man, as not to say I'm Jesus, but what he said on the cross, it is finished. That's exactly what I said, man, to myself. I was at a calm. I was just like, okay, I did what I was supposed to do. It's finished. Put the application on the desk, turn around, walk to the bus station. And as simple as I'm explaining it to you, it's as simple as I did it. I walked to the bus station. I had enough money for a bus ticket back to Orlando. And I just waited in the bus station, just kind of by myself with other people, at the Greyhound, and got on the bus, man, and sat up front and just watched the journey back.
And this is me just knowing you and listening to you over the years since that point. Not that that made me respect you anymore, because I think I always had the same level of respect and regard for you because of the type of person that you were. I never seen anything that was flaky about you. You know what I mean? I might have questioned some of the things that you were willing to do, but everything always made sense once you did it, to me at least. Your life changes after that experience and goes into another trajectory of things going good, things working out, and you having opportunity after opportunity and creating opportunities for yourself. Um, do you feel like, this whole thing was by design outside of your control, and it was meant for you to do it exactly that way to get to the other part of life that was awaiting you? How would you summarize and kind of explain and articulate uh, the blessings and the opportunities, and then your outlook on life and how you view it with a different eye after going through that journey up to this point?
I think it part of my, no pun intended, but part of my journey. Like, I had to go through it. And again, like, people don't, like, when you hit rock bottom and lose, like, you gotta at some point in your life lose everything, like, to really appreciate what God's about to give to you. When you think all that, because you think all that stuff matters, and then once you realize that it's not, like, it doesn't matter. It made me appreciate life a whole lot more. And think about this. So I thought I was going to be this 6 foot, 205-pound defensive back. Because I'm going back to I was always a specimen without really having to work. So, so I thought that's what I was being prepared for. Come to find out, I'm being prepared to walk a 32-day journey, like you said, the athlete, the understanding the training, the pushing yourself through, the losing, and always having to fight to prove myself. I think that's what I was being prepared for, because now that everything that come after that makes sense. Like, because it's like like nothing, you can't do anything to me now to rattle me or to shake me, because I know where my blessings come from. I not to digress, but I can shut a party down. If I get a little too wild, we can shut the whole gym down and never have a party in Edinboro again. But but like, all that changed, man. It was supposed to happen, and I really wouldn't have been able to understand it then. But like I said, some of the stuff that I face now, they're being appreciative, for fighting through, even the business that I started, after. Well, I got to go back to this one. I'm sorry for jumping around, but after I finished that walk, I joined the Florida Restoration for Rights Coalition, and I just happened to be in Tampa giving my testimony. There was a guy who wasn't supposed to be there from Alabama that was there, who heard my testimony, that came up to me after it was all over and said, "I'm going to stay in touch with you." And I heard that thousands of times, like, people going to come save me. And he's like, "No, I'm going to stay in touch with you. I think there's this coalition that's forming, and we're going to stay in touch with you. I'm homeless." He calls me 2 weeks later and says, "We have an opportunity for you. We want to put a face on what a felon is, and you're the guy." He's like, "We can only pay you $60,000 a year." Me being me, let me get back to you. Let me check my calendar. I'll get back to you in a couple of days. Homeless. Coming 24 years later, he's like my dad. And the reason why I'm so driven and committed, isn't supposed to be in Orlando or in Tampa. He said he's going to keep in touch with me, and he called me and he gave me, presented me the offer. It was the first time, other than sports, that somebody said this to me. And I committed to him after he said this. He said, "There's something about you." He's like, "Anybody willing to do what you did in this day and age, at your age, deserves to be, to be given a second chance." And he said, he's like, you're smart. You're smart. And I'm going to help develop that. That's the first time somebody ever told me I was going to be something and it had nothing to do with sports. Because generally we're used for our athletic ability. And that's when I was like, that's foreign to me. Like nobody's ever said like I'm special other than I can do something for you. So man, it was a change in the course of my life, and praise God that God sent him. Because like I said, now he's still like a dad to me. He's 84 now. We talk like every other day. And he's the one who developed me, my awareness, my political awareness, and developed me as a man and how to be honorable. He did something, when I was fighting to get my rights back after we had delivered the clemency application, that I said I need to be more like him. So I slipped through the cracks in Alabama. I slipped through the crack, and my name was on the voters list. And I told him, I was like, ooh, I'm going to go vote. He's like, no, you're not. I was like, what are you talking about? I was like, they're the ones who messed up. I didn't mess up. I've never voted before. I was like, I'm going to go vote. He's like, if you go to vote, I'm going to turn you in. Turn me in? You supposed to be my, whatever, you supposed to be my homeboy. You ain't going to turn me in. I was like, I'm getting the vote. He's like, you better not. That's, bruh, that changed. I was like, that's what love is. Not allowing you to do wrong, even though, the lane is there for me to take, and it's for the taking, and nobody else would know. But he checked me on that, man, and that's when I said I will commit my life to serving and giving back and doing whatever I can to make it easy for other people, even though it wasn't so easy for myself.
When I listen to that story, and I've heard the basics of your experience and your journey to that point over the years, but hearing it and uh, being able to receive it and understand, the difficulty and the position that you were in, and that point of desperation that you felt like you had to take all of that on, do or die. You know what I mean? It just gives me a greater appreciation for, having a friendship with you, number one, having the pleasure of being a teammate, number two, but also to be a pupil and to be able to watch your example that, if things aren't going right in my own life,
yeah,
man, there's people that have been through far worse. There's people that almost lost it all and didn't have the opportunity. And then there's those that did lose it all. And, they gave up, stopped trying, and just accepted what was. When you think about, that young kid being raised under the banner of a name that didn't give anybody anything positive to say, you thinking that, your name was being made on the courts and the athletic fields, only to find out that doesn't really mean anything in what life is from your beginning to your end.
Yeah.
And to find that peace and that purpose and that passion as a man, and be able to lead and show people, you can do things outside of the scope of what others think you're worthy of. I won't even say capable. I'll say worthy, because some people think that they have the power to put those limitations on your life. But,
right.
Your testimony and your example just shows that you're only limited by what you decide to accept as a limit. If you had that one more down in your life to do over for yourself, what would that scenario be for you? And this is philosophical. It could be on the athletic field. It could be in life. It can be with family. If David Sadler had that one more down to repeat, to do again, where would that be at? Who would be with you? Could you set that up for me?
Woo! I don't know where you got your interviewing skills at, but you on it, Wano. You on it. The down. What down would I do over? I always say this. God got me in a pretty good place right now. I'm not perfect. Still go through heartache, hard times, but they don't get the best of me. And I think, a lot of people say I wouldn't play the down over because I wouldn't be where I am today, and who knows. But if I did, had to play the down over, I think it would be, whew. There was a point in my life, that I didn't get to grow up with my dad, my biological father. And I met my sister, who I thought I was the youngest child of his. Then I met my sister, who was younger than me, who lives in Houston. We met on Facebook. And she talked so good about the man that only lived 30 miles away from us, who never spent time with us. So now we have this relationship, and I'm getting to the part that I would play over. And she invited me to her wedding. And I go to the wedding, and I'm with my wife, and I'm sitting behind this man who I look almost identical to. And you always make fun of me about my head size. I'm sitting 2 rows behind him, and during the whole wedding, I'm zoned in on a guy who my DNA matches almost 100%. This man, I'm looking at me throughout the whole wedding, and I forgave him for not being there at my sister's wedding, who I formed a relationship with years after, saying that I didn't need that man. He left, his loss. And, I recognized him respectfully. I said, how you doing? But, he was like, yeah, that's my son. I wanted to say some few choice words, but I didn't. But if I had to play that back, I think I would have mended that relationship years sooner, because he died not too long after that. About a year after that, he died. And again, just to sit and watch him, to see myself in him. And Jen now, my sister, her name's Jen. She says, my mannerisms and look more like him than any of my other brothers that he had. So that's the one thing that I would have done differently, man. Because I'm mature enough now to know that everybody does things for their own reasons, selfish or not, to cope with life and to get through life. And I think it might have been easier for him to not be around me and my siblings, because I don't know what happened. You only get part of the story. We never got his side of the story. So if I had to replay any down, it would have been to mend that relationship sooner. I say that because the relationship that I have with my kids, it breaks. It would kill me not to be around them on a regular basis. So I sometimes I don't understand how some parents don't want to be around their kids. So I say that's it, man. But other than that, I would go through the same struggles that I went through because I came out, pretty good, man. God has been good to me. I do well. We do well, and I make life simple, and I like ruffling people's feathers, and for good. I get in good trouble. I'm not going to cause anybody any harm. I'm just going to push the envelope and get people to do what's right.
You're the 50th episode that we've done so far, and out of those 50, I've heard some tremendous perspectives, great accomplishments on and off the field. But out of those 50, I really honestly can say to you that I don't know that I've heard a better journey and a better articulation of what it is to persevere, find yourself, and come to peace. You know what I mean? And like you said, in the midst of that, you're not perfect, and you strive to put your best foot forward. And then, listening to all of that, I imagine that, the goal is to always make sure that Sadler name doesn't end the same way that it started out. So, for you to take that time out your busy schedule, that hectic pace that you operate out at, and give me what was supposed to be an hour, an hour and 45, hour 50 minutes of transparency. I thank you for doing that for me, man, because it puts me in another lane to, know that I can keep on and keep developing myself, keep reinventing myself. And I don't have to end how I started, man. So I thank you for coming on and giving me them nuggets today, man. It was well received, and I hope it benefits someone else, whoever decides to peek in on this.
And if I can say this about you, man, I appreciate you, bro. And because I called you about some stuff, to get your opinion on some stuff. So y'all don't think this is just like we set this up. Like I've reached out to Ron about life to try to help me get through some stuff. And I respect you too, man. Like I said, I don't do a lot of people. And this is probably the first time that I've sat down and told my story, in depth, and even got emotional. But man, that's because I respect you, bro. And I'm not too man enough to say that, and that I love you. I'm man enough to tell you that I love you and I care about you. I wish we could spend more time together, but we get families and life comes to play. But I do got to say this, that life, you can do life on your own terms. And every day is a new day. And as long as you keep getting up, you got an opportunity to do something different. And now if you come anywhere near Alabama and say, do you know David Sadler? It'll benefit you. The last name Sadler in Montgomery, Alabama, they'll probably say that that's somebody that you need to know. Or if you know him, you're all right with me. So like you said, completely change the narrative of the Sadler name.
Hey, what's understood doesn't have to be explained. With us, it's always LOD, man.
LOD for life, bro. LOD.